Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
What up? How we doing?
What's going on?
You're muted, buddy. You're muted. Oh, here's the dodge. Kyle, how are you? Good morning.
Guys, good morning. Hey, guys, welcome back. Another episode of Coffee with Closers Live. Today, we have special guest Kyle Stanley. And I'm excited because I don't know Kyle that well. So I'm going to use this opportunity to get to know Kyle. Guys, we love the audience interaction. That's the whole purpose of this live show. We're syndicated out to Facebook, to YouTube, maybe even a couple other places that I don't even know about. But if you are watching in, drop in some questions along the way. We love the audience interaction. Also, right now, tell us where you are watching from. Looks like we got some people here already jumping in, which is awesome. Tennessee, California. So, Kyle, welcome aboard, my man. How the hell are you?
I'm good, David. What's up, Gavin? What's up, Don? Good to see you guys.
Yeah, I got to speak with you probably a week ago, too. I was driving around New Orleans trying to get this car back that I couldn't figure out, but I managed to do it in the end, so we had a good chat. So I'm excited to have you on, Kyle, and I know you know Don well, right? You from the same market, if that's right. So, yeah.
Both in the know, Fresno.
Yeah, so I'm excited to have you here. We're going to be talking a lot about Airbnb today. I know you've grew a real big Facebook as well for that. So I want to talk about some cool stuff. So I appreciate you being here. And like David said, guys, if you are watching, the numbers are going up. Give us a like, share the post if you can, depending on if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook. Again, good morning and welcome. If you have any questions along the way, put them into the chat and we will be able to see them. And we're going to be definitely peppering Kyle with some questions of our own and then yours as well, too. So awesome. It feels like I had last week off. I'm ready to go.
I think Don, I think he's out. He had enough.
I scared him off. I scared him off,
man. Yeah. He'll be back.
We've got the Fresno, the real Fresno beast.
I was going to say, maybe he's just driving over to jump on live with me.
There you go. That's right. I love it.
Awesome. So, Kyle, tell us a little bit about you.
About yourself.
Shoot. What do you want to know? You want to know where I was born and what a hospital, or where we started from?
Let's start with when did you get into real estate and how long ago and why?
Yeah. So I actually signed up with Fortune Builders back in January of 19 and went down that route. And, started out flipping homes. And then I got one house that I was going to burr and keep as a long-term rental. And everyone was telling me, hey, keep it as a long-term rental. Here's the numbers. You'll probably make about $600 a month as a regular rental. And I had been doing Airbnb kind of like, just a room out of my house for about 3 years. And I was like, well, I'm already a super host. I'm curious what that would look like if I did the entire house as an Airbnb. And I ran the numbers, not knowing a whole lot on how to really do the analysis on that. And I got to the point where I was like, man, I could make like $2,000 net profit on this. That's like 3.5 times the amount that I would make with a regular rental. Might as well try it out. And I even remember my mentor being like, I don't think that's going to work. And I was like, I think it will. And sure enough, month one, I made about $1,800, $2,000 right where I thought it was, and just went all in. And so now we have a management company. We do, a lot of Airbnbs without owning the property. I own about 6 right now, but the majority are without owning. And I think total we have about 60 properties now.
That's awesome. And are they all in the
60 Airbnbs?
Yeah. Yep. 60. It's a lot. I got a great team. So it keeps it really, really manageable.
How many of these do you own versus arbitrage?
So I own about 6. I arbitrage, I think about 8 or 9. And then the rest I co-host. So essentially managing for other owners.
Nice, man. That's amazing. Okay. Very cool. And would you recommend the arbitrage model? I mean, it seems to me like that's a great place to get in if you're wanting to do Airbnb, because you don't need to buy or own real estate to do it. You can lease and then you sublease essentially.
That was the light bulb for me, David. It was like, when I saw that it worked, I was like, all right, let's see how much more I can get into Airbnb and how I can own more. And then you get down this rabbit hole and find videos like mine on YouTube or podcasts. And, you start learning about this arbitrage model. And for those of you that don't know what that is, you just essentially lease it from a landlord and then sublease it on Airbnb, and you keep the profits. So you don't have to own the property. So, that typical $300,000 house that you'd have to put 20% down on if you're buying it conventionally is going to cost you over $100,000 when it's all said and done with furniture and amenities and rehab and all that good stuff. But with arbitrage, you're looking at security deposit, consumables, furnishing. That's all your costs. And so that same property that cost you over $100,000 to own now only costs you about $12,000 to $15,000 to arbitrage. And oh, by the way, then you get really good at this and people start coming to you and start saying, hey, what if you own, or what if you manage my property for me? And then before you know it, you have no startup costs. So it's a pretty amazing business to be able to scale at a pretty fast pace.
I love it, man. I love it. So
where are these located?
Yeah, great question. So about 45 are in Fresno and Clovis. 5 are in a little town called Bass Lake, which is just outside of Fresno. And then we have 10 in Phoenix and Scottsdale. We just started that market about 8 or 9 months ago. So we're up and running and wanting to blow that one up right now.
Awesome.
Okay, I got a question. So, well, go ahead, Gavin.
No, go on. I think it's my internet, guys. I'm a little delayed. I apologize.
No, we just talked on top of each other. So Bass Lake, I'm very familiar with. Obviously, Kyle, we're in the same market. Bass Lake is kind of a vacation spot. It's between Fresno and Yosemite for people who want to get kind of a sense of the area. Fresno's about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Yosemite, depending on traffic. So, and Bass Lake's kind of right in the middle. So Bass Lake being kind of a vacation area, you have areas like Phoenix and Fresno, which are more like metropolitan cities. Where's the better place to do an Airbnb?
I personally think that if you can get into the vacation areas, it's the better place to do it from a yearly ROI. It's not very consistent. It's extremely, extremely seasonal. So, it's kind of like Fresno is like the kiddie roller coaster. Phoenix and Scottsdale, because it is a little bit more vacation, is going to be more like the like teenager roller coaster. And then you've got Bass Lake, which is like adult roller coaster all day long. I'll just give you an example. One of our properties grossed $21,000 in July in Bass. And then in November, it only grossed $1,500. So,
wow. That's a big swing.
Huge
The Great
swing.
Outdoors was filmed there, according to Diego. And I just watched that for the first time like 3 months ago. That is one of the funniest movies. Love that movie.
The Great Outdoors. I don't think I've seen that one.
I've not seen it either.
Oh, you guys got to check it out. It's hilarious.
Nice.
It's great. It's old. The movie's like 35
Yeah,
minutes.
it's just John Candy and Dan Aykroyd. It was
It's barely color.
I actually just watched it the other day. It's funny you mentioned it, but I just watched it the other day.
I know. It's such a funny movie.
Yeah. Ducey's is a restaurant in Bass Lake. It's a lot of the shots were at Ducey's, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I had no idea. That's awesome.
That's great.
But yeah, Donna, if you're looking at it from a yearly ROI, though, Bass is going to kill it 95% of the time compared to just about any like metropolitan, like you mentioned.
But you just got to be, so in other words, you got to be smart about your business model and during the good times, make sure you're saving some money to cover your cost during lean times and that kind of thing. So
And
nailed it.
well, let's take Bass then for a second. Like, what is it? What are the monthly payments on that versus what you could Airbnb? What are the price homes in that area?
Yeah, so we just bought one right now that's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath cabin, but it's pretty big overall. When we renovate the garage, it's going to be about 2,000 square feet. So we're turning that into a 4.2. We bought that for $620. I think our mortgage is with insurance because insurance is high over there. I think we're at $3,400 a month, and that property should gross over $100,000 for the year.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
And with that, when you said you put a mortgage on it, did you take that down cash and then?
Uh-oh, we're losing
you
Gavin.
lost Gavin.
What was how did you take it down?
Say that again, Gavin. Say that again.
Oh,
I got you.
It was actually a really good question.
I'm sure it was.
No, I was saying, like when when you said you bought that for 650 or whatever it was, like how did you acquire that property? Did you buy it cash and then burr it? Like how did you acquire that property? Did you buy it off the MLS? Like how did you get that one in particular?
Great question. So we actually are using someone else's ability to get a second home loan right now because I can't get one because I have crap on my 1099 or on my self-employment, everything that we're doing. Then my wife is not able to do that as well. So we partnered up with some friends who could get their 10% second home loan. We were already looking for a cabin because we wanted a nice little place to get away to. And we figured if we can turn it into an investment property as well and use the 10% down payment instead of 20%, we could do it that way. So there's not a lot of inventory. Don can probably vouch for this. There's not a lot of inventory over in the area. So when something jumps on the MLS, it's probably like one of 3 or 4 listings over there. So we just went for it and offered at price and we're going to renovate it, probably put about $40,000 into it. It'll probably be worth like $720 by the time we're done with it too.
Awesome.
Now I know we're talking about local markets here, but Shaver is very similar to Bass. It's kind of an opposite direction. You don't have anything in Shaver, I'm assuming. Would that because Bass Lake, obviously, you have the people going to Yosemite. Yosemite is a tourist spot. It's driving people there. Shaver isn't quite the same. You have the ski lodge up north of Shaver. And there's snow in the winter, and there's obviously a lake in the summer. Would you choose Shaver as a destination? I mean, just to kind of talk about like if we're picking vacation spots, like what makes you pick a vacation spot? I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Great question. I'm all about the data. That's the thing about Airbnb, right? We can feel like we know who the guests are and why they be coming. Like everyone in the world asks me, who in the world's going to Fresno, California? Well, I can tell you now that I have experience of what that is. But before, I just looked at the data. And just like you can do an ARV on a flip, you can do essentially an ARV on an Airbnb. And there's a product out there called AirDNA. AirDNA has both a free and paid version, but you could look and see, okay, what's the average nightly rate for a similar property? What's the average occupancy for that similar property? Do the numbers, put in your expenses and figure out what you could net on a monthly basis. So the reason that I chose Bass over Shaver, Don, is 1, the numbers, and 2, just the what clients needed. A lot of clients were coming to me for Bass. Not many were coming to me for Shaver.
Okay. So I know people across the country don't have the same perspective you and I have. We're talking about that, but one does have a tourist destination right in its backyard, and that may be one of the reasons why it's got a higher demand. So
yeah, and the thing about it too that I always wonder is like Shaver has China Peak, which is a ski resort right next to it. So you figure that it would do well in both the summer and the winter, but the numbers show that Bass just kills it compared to Shaver. So.
What's funny while we're on this topic, I'm going to hog this conversation for a minute, is you say, why would people come to Fresno, right? People don't realize like we're an hour and a half ish from the snow. We're roughly a couple hours from Yosemite, again, depending on traffic. We're a couple hours from the beach. We're 3 hours from San Francisco. Like we're right in the middle of California, and we're very, very close. I can go to San Francisco and down to LA in one day if I wanted to try to pull that off. I can go to the snow and the beach in one day if I wanted to try to pull that off and enjoy both of them, honestly. So, a lot of people don't realize like Fresno really is a great place to come. If you're wanting to come to California, we don't have beachfront property, but we're close to everything.
Yeah. And another advantage that we have is we don't have very good hotels in Fresno. So people do not want to stay in hotels when they come here. They want to stay in Airbnbs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I imagine as well, like Airbnbs, like we just bought a house in Scottsdale, right? That we just talked about before we started. Now, technically, like I am 2 blocks over from being in Phoenix, but I imagine a Scottsdale address is gonna do me better on Airbnb because it's got the word Scottsdale on it, and I'm literally 5 minutes from Old Town straight in, kind of the back way as well with no traffic. So I'm kind of in a good location here to be able to do that. But the other places as well that I see across kind of the country is near airports, because I think a lot of people want to stay in Airbnb if they come in for business, things like that. Am I losing me again? Sorry. I'm going to see if I can swap over internet. Apologies, guys.
You're good. You're saying airports?
Yeah, it was another great question. Yeah,
I think I heard
proximity to
airports
matter.
and for business travel.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So when I first started out, I was like, all right, so it's got to be close to the major highways. It's got to be close to the airport. It's got to be close to the attractions. And for the majority of the time, that is going to give you the best shot at getting the most occupancy at the highest rates. But that doesn't mean that it has to have those qualities in order to work. So as I started, I was very focused on, okay, just for example, in Fresno, we got the 41 highway, we got the 99 highway, we got the airport, and we got Fresno State. Those are some of the things that I thought it just had to be by. And then some other opportunities came up, and it was a little bit further north, one was a little bit further east. And I was like, all right, kind of feel like I'm taking a chance here because I've been saying it needs to be by these central things. And the thing is, it worked. Here's what I do know, though. When we get into the slow seasons, if you're not by those things, you're probably going to feel a lot more during the slow season versus the peak seasons. But even beyond that, Gavin, I would say if you can make your Airbnb look really badass, great pictures, great amenities, you're throwing in, for example, just some things that we've seen that worked: hot tubs, pools, Peloton bikes are actually really good ones too. Just anything that makes the house just go from average to up here. Location can really, all those things can trump location, I guess is what I'm saying.
Interesting, yeah. Because I took my wife to the airport this morning. We're like 13 minutes from the airport, which is great as well.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna kill it. And I know a great management company out there too. Wink, wink.
Love it.
Hey, Kyle, and this actually is a question for everybody here. So I'm wondering if my market is unique, or if you guys are experiencing this or are seeing this in other markets. So St. Louis is divided into a city county, and I believe there's only one other place in the country like that, and I believe it's Atlanta. Neither here nor there. But it matters because the city and the county are two different governments. They're two different recording and agent or places, and there's two different basically tax collectors, right? Kind of random. Mm-hmm. And in the city of St. Louis, if you're in the city limits and you convert your long-term rental into an Airbnb, or you just do Airbnb out the gate, they tax you as a commercial property, no longer a residential property. So I only own one Airbnb, and this is probably why. Our property taxes on this one property went from $2,200 annual to $8,200.
Whoa.
Annual.
What?
Yeah. So you now see the picture that my city's painting about being pro Airbnb. They're taxing the hell out of people, so it doesn't incentivize me to go do more in my market. And a lot of the county where the tax, they don't have that rule, they don't even allow it. So I think my market's probably a unicorn when it comes to this. But I just wanted to throw that out and ask if anybody has heard or is experiencing anything like that.
That's the first time I've heard about property taxes being impacted. In the short-term rental industry, we're essentially hospitality. So what we are considered is like the hotel industry. So we have to pay a transient occupancy tax. The majority of places like Fresno and Clovis are just now starting to implement this. Scottsdale, Phoenix, all the Arizona markets have been doing it forever. I've never heard property tax though. That's really unique. I mean,
it's going up that's about a 400 to 600% increase. I'm terrible at simple math like that, but from 2 to 8, I think it's either 78 or 8,200. To where I'm looking at this bill and I'm like, who bought a car? I'm like,
right.
What this is a property tax? Like, what are you guys doing? This is crazy.
Yeah. So over 12 months, that's $500 a month. I mean, if you're making $1,000 a month, now you're back down to $500 a month. You might as well do a long-term rental.
And the only way that I've seen to avoid it, or to essentially get the city to reverse it or not convert you from residential to the commercial side of taxation, is to be 30+ day rentals, which is there's pros and cons there, of course.
I think a couple things on that. So first of all, 30-day rentals, if you have a small unit, 1 or 2 bedroom, can be really, really advantageous because just for example, I have a large number of 1-bedroom homes and apartments in Fresno. We get tons and tons of nurses and traveling professionals that want to stay for, anywhere between 4 to 13 weeks or longer. But those are typically people that are traveling at 1s and 2s. They're not going to want that big 3-bedroom house most of the time. So I find the 1 and 2 bedrooms, if you have to do the 30-day plus rental, to actually still work really well. When you get to those bigger units, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom, that's typically going to be that getaway for the weekend.
Right.
It's not going to be a lot of people looking for the 30 days.
Yeah. Traveling nurses and just corporate, people that are doing 3-month or 6-month type corporates, stints.
Yeah.
I noticed that the 1s and the 2s those will work really well. The bigger ones, you're going to have a hard time booking out something for, 45 days or 3 months or 2 months, whenever the price especially is, $2,000 a night.
Oh yeah. Well,
that's a lot of money for somebody to say, okay, I'll take it for the whole month.
Yeah. And that's going back to like Don's question about vacation rentals. That's what makes vacation rentals a little bit more risky because while you're getting that high payoff at the, in the thousands per night,
you have vacancies.
You could have a lot of vacancies. You could also have a city just change their rules. And before you know it, you're like, wow, I got a, $4,000 a month mortgage on this large luxury property and no one's going to want to rent it long-term for more than, $4,500, $5,000, which maybe still covers the expenses, but it's still not that as worth it as a long-term or as an Airbnb. But what's encouraging about this too, David, is I don't know if you guys heard, Las Vegas is starting to lift a lot of their restrictions on Airbnbs. And I think that's going to set the pace for a lot of other cities. Like you mentioned, you said St. Louis, right, David?
Yeah, that's where I live. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's going to set the pace for a lot of other cities, seeing a major city driven by hotels and resorts that has had a ban on Airbnbs for a long time, unless it is your primary residence. They're going to see that. And I think that a lot of Airbnb hosts are going to point to that and start, really going to City Hall and banging their chests and saying, we're mad. If Vegas can do it, we should be allowed to do it. And Vegas, the whole reason they're doing it is because guests and hosts all were complaining, saying, hey, we want to stay at Airbnbs, but you don't have any, or hey,
the casinos. I mean, this is speculating here, of course, but the casinos are probably like, no Airbnb, stay in the casino, stay in the hotel. Mm-hmm. And then COVID comes around, and they're like, well, we're not coming to the casino if we can't stay outside. So then all of a sudden, they kind of destroyed their whole. They're reversing their backpedaling at this point.
Exactly.
That's my 2 cents at least.
No, I think so, and I just think that the market is going to continue to favor Airbnb. And even if cities and counties are trying to shut it down, it's going to be temporary. I think San Diego a couple of years ago did the same thing. They shut down, and 3 months later, because everyone was complaining, they opened it right back up. And now they have just Atlanta, the same thing. They were going to shut it all down, and now they're kind of compromising. So there's a lot of that going on. I think that at the end of the day, if you're serious about getting into Airbnb, you have to realize, it's a real estate strategy, but even more so, it's hospitality, and just being a good neighbor is really at the end of the day what's going to help make this a long-lasting exit strategy in your market. You have to be a good neighbor. You have to pre-screen your guests. You have to make sure you're not allowing the shenanigans to come in, because it's those complaints that continue to happen that put a city in danger.
Yeah, I've heard the horror stories here in Fresno about, people renting an Airbnb and then having parties and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons why Fresno is talking about cracking down. I'm sure a lot of other cities have experienced the same thing. Then,
breaking in and having parties.
No, people renting it for one night and having a big party. And, of course, that upsets the neighbors. You got cars, doing all kinds of crazy stuff out in the street, people doing all kinds of crazy stuff in the property. And, people are getting hurt and different things like that. And so that's part of why a lot of cities crack down. I know that I've been watching Airbnbs for years, and it's one of those things where you just kind of like Bitcoin, you should have bought at 300, right? But ultimately, I was really scared of getting into Airbnbs because I was watching cities start to crack down. And I think primarily, looking back on it now, cities are cracking down because they didn't know how to regulate the industry. And as they figure out how to regulate the industry, I think they'll let some of the reins off of, the the rules and stuff like that in their areas. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. Kyle and I have had conversations about, Clovis and Fresno trying to implement a tax. But, I know, Kyle, you mentioned, at least in our last meeting, I don't know if it's changed or not, that, you're not even sure like how to pay it. They're not sure how to collect it. Like there was a whole thing going on about, how to even track all that. So,
yeah, it's funny, Clovis and Fresno are always about like 5 years behind the rest of the world. So,
right.
yeah. And that's a big thing. We don't need to get totally into all of that right now, but I think that's the big thing just for any of you out there that are looking to get into Airbnb. It's actually a really good benefit to be in a city, for example, like a Scottsdale or Phoenix, that is already charging transient occupancy tax and, tells you gotta get permitted before you start this whole process, because what they're saying is we see it, we're okay with it. By the way, we're going to take our cut of it. We just want to make sure that it's done legit, because if it is being done that way, then the city's making money and typically they're very happy with that. Whereas a place like, Fresno and Clovis, they're just now implementing that, which is great, but they don't know how to implement it. And for that reason, we're having to go through a lot of headaches of some people are paying it, some people aren't, and it's making a very unlevel playing field that we're having to kind of get some bumps and bruises along the way. So going into a city that already has those kinds of regulations is a really good idea, because it's the systems are already in place, I guess.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and see if I can stay in service here, but
Go quick.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Do you have a rule?
It's the accent that slows them down. We're gonna keep it present. Go ahead.
Do you have a rule that when you buy a property, and if the rules change, that you must cover that payment with the minimum rents if you was to do a yearly rental on it?
Oh yeah. Let's just talk about metrics in general. What kind of metrics are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm looking for. So first of all, I want to know, am I going to net at least 1/3 of the gross income that I bring in? So if I gross $3,000, I need to know that I'm going to net at least $1,000. So that's the first thing that really helps me to understand if it's a good deal. Because what that shows as well is that if there's high vacancy that month, I'm still probably making a little bit of money. I'm not in the red. The next thing, for sure, Gavin, I'm definitely looking for if I am getting shut down tomorrow, or if COVID has another huge outbreak where, travel is shut down. Can I put someone in here for 30, 60, 90 days, cover at least my mortgage, and be able to, in the long term, if I have to turn into a long-term rental, at least make a little bit of money. And then the last thing is just straight up. I mean, probably the most important thing is just straight up safety. Is it in a safe neighborhood? Would I walk my dog? Would I take a walk with my wife at night in that neighborhood? If the answer is no to that, I would probably avoid it.
What kind of thing do you avoid, Matt asks? That's a great question.
Things
with city commercial property taxes.
Yeah, right. Doing it in a place that you can't scale. So, for example, a lot of people in the past have been able to do it in Vegas. You just can't really scale a business in Vegas because you are going to have a lot of restrictions. Primary residence within a certain amount of space. I think Matt mentioned that too. I saw that. That's a place I'm probably going to avoid. Unsafe neighborhood, I'm going to avoid. The great thing is that most places can work as an Airbnb. Don and I have a friend here in Fresno that does Airbnb, and he started on what's called Bulldog Lane, which is like one of the worst places to be as a renter. And he was doing an Airbnb and making a killing. So it works in the majority of places. You just want to be a little more careful when it comes to location. Anything else I want to avoid off the top of my head? I do try to, just because of my business model, I try to avoid the really big, large, gorgeous properties with the huge pool and the huge hot tub, because it's going to make a lot of money, but man, it's going to piss off a lot of neighbors. It's going to piss off a lot of neighbors,
a lot of maintenance, a lot of liability, a lot of everything.
We just picked up a mansion in Glendale in Arizona, and I'm scared to death. I know it's going to make great money, but I just know right away the neighbors are going to be complaining on a weekly basis. Now, luckily I have a great team and they made the decision that they want to do that. And I said, you realize we're going to get a lot of complaints. They said, we're ready for it. And I said, okay, as long as my phone's not ringing, then we're good.
Is there anything you can do or that you're already doing that limits people from having big, crazy parties? Because I know that, like, for example, about a year or two ago, my wife and her friends, they rented an Airbnb here locally just for the day to go have a baby shower. So, like, that's not a huge deal. It's a bunch of women. They're not getting crazy. Well, they might have been, right? Who knows? But they're not typically doing that at 3:00 in the morning. And you had mentioned earlier about people, having parties and causing ruckus and getting complaints from the neighbors. Is there anything that you can do, or is there any sort of occupancy limitations, or is it just kind of like you hope that they just don't abuse it?
Well, let me tell you what we do, because I'm interested in what you say. So my wife does, right, is that we have it where they have to apply and we have to say, yes, they can take that booking. So we vet everybody that comes in. And we kind of find out what they're doing, like why are they here, how long are they here, and some it's like, oh, I'm in med school, I'm coming for 3 months, or we have SCAD in Savannah, which is a high-end college, so my son's moving there, so I'm coming to move him in, so I'm staying for a month. Like, so we see all of that, and we do turn people down, like especially like St. Patrick's Day. And it was like this girl come in with like one friend, but can I have other friends over? Like, absolutely not. No.
Right. Gavin, do you have your instant book turned on or off? Do you know?
We have it off.
Sounds off.
Yeah. So,
and Gavin, your Airbnb's in your backyard, right?
Absolutely. That's the other
So that's
reason.
one of the reasons why you're moderating
Yes.
the way you are. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to point that out before you answered that, Kyle.
Don, we're gonna have to rent that thing out and just go to town, baby.
We do. Yes. Yes.
make a dummy.
You may or may not get that invite, buddy.
We're gonna make a dummy profile and say that we're someone else. So first of all, Gavin, I would not turn instant book off, because you're killing yourself on the Airbnb algorithm. Now, if you tell me that you're making amazing money and that you're getting booked 90%, like, keep on doing what you're doing. But the majority of people are going to kill themselves if they put instant book off. So the trick there is turn on instant book, but they give you about 3 or 4 different options for the qualifications that people need to have in order to instantly book. And one of them is called a host recommendation. So if a host says, great guest, 5 stars, or if a host says, bad guest, left a mess, then they can't book with you until you go through, again, you called it application process. I call it a pre-screening process, same thing. But it's very similar to what you're doing. Just, hey, why are you staying? Why do you want to stay here? Please read our rules. Oh, by the way, we have a camera at the front of the house, so anything goes wrong, we're going to know about it. We're going to kick you out right away. So that typically has been a formula for success.
Kyle, can you repeat that real quick? So you're talking about cameras. Can you say that again?
Yeah, just a Ring doorbell at the front of the house. You don't want to have a camera inside the house.
No, of course. Yeah. But outside's fine for safety reasons, of course. That's not intrusive, I don't think, at least, No. But you can use your team can monitor that. And if there's a traffic jam out front, it's like, you guys need to do something, you need to change something. So yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good.
For sure.
So
it typically scares people away is what it really does, David. If they see in the check-in or the application process, hey, we have a camera, most of the time they're just going to go to the next host that doesn't have the camera.
Matt's got a good question here. Oh, go ahead, Gavin. You had something too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say back to that. So we're classed as a super host. And we normally do minimum 30 days because we have to in the area. Okay. And it's always booked out. The only time that we have it available normally is if like there's a week apart from someone booking, right? Like I would say 10.5 months, 11 months a year we're booked. And the only other month to 6 weeks is just like a 7-day gap between the next guest, but sometimes they're the next day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Then in situations like that, I think you're totally fine with what you're doing.
Yeah, and again, I want to point out to the listeners, his situation is unique. It's a guest house on his property. It's not like it's down the street or in another neighborhood or in another city. So he's got to be a little bit more particular about his screening process than you would be necessarily. So on the camera thing, have you ever actually interrupted somebody's stay and asked them to leave?
Mm-hmm.
How does that go down?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, no, really good question. So, between us, we really can't kick someone out unless they're doing something illegal, and having a party is not illegal, right? Unless there's gunshots going off, unless there's drugs, we can call the cops, and then it becomes, a matter with the police. But here's the script on that. Hey, you booked for one person. We got a complaint from a neighbor. We see you on the Ring doorbell. We can hear you. It's 1 a.m. You got to leave. Well, we're not having a party. Guys, you're having a party. We can tell you're having a party. Here's the deal. We can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way. The easy way is you either tell everyone to leave and we'll let you stay for the night. The hard way is if you don't leave, what we're going to do is we're going to call Airbnb. They're going to call the police, and they're also going to shut down your profile, and then you're never going to be able to stay anywhere ever again with your Airbnb profile. So what would you like to choose? So, and Airbnb is not really going to shut down their profile, but I just say that because I want them to have
you want it to have some weight behind it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
So most of the time when that happens, they either cut the party or they leave with their tail between their legs.
Yeah. Or at a minimum, they just tone it down a ton.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Well, hey, Matt's got a good question here. Do you do bed bug checks or have things missing?
That things missing. That part of it threw me off, but I will say this sounds kind of like a quality control question. So yeah, every single time a guest comes in, we have a cleaner going in. We're changing the sheets every single time. And then we have quality control managers that come through and see the properties about once a month. We've had one situation of bed bugs, and it was a pretty simple situation. Guests found a bed bug. We fully refunded them, got our pest guy in, had to tent the place. Found out about an insurance company afterward that actually will pay for any lost income during situations like that. Proper.insure is their website, proper.insure. And they'll actually, if you had bed bugs, they will actually say, okay, we're going to pay for the, I think it's treatment. They either pay for the lost income plus the repair and actually having the pest guy go out there, or at least just the lost income. Okay. So those are definitely some benefits.
So I think the second part is do you have things missing from time to time, like a TV or items in the house? And I'm sure it happens. I mean, everything is going to happen at some point in time. I've had houses burned down. I mean, it happens. Yeah.
Knock on wood, we've never had anything major stolen. The worst
like a garage door.
Yeah, never had a garage door up and run away, grow legs. I think the worst claim we ever had was about $1,500. And it was, I'm guessing some large people were jumping on beds or something, because there was glass that was broken. There was 2 beds that were broken. And yeah, I think it was like $1,500. And we've hosted over 10,000 guests. We have over 2,000 reviews now. So, we've had a lot of people go through. I just think that we do a good job of pre-screening the guests to make sure that we're getting the best quality.
Awesome. Seth says we turned Instabook off a few months ago and are really happy that we did so. So I guess he's referring to the ability to vet people before they Instabook. So Kyle, you were saying though that hurts you when it comes to the algorithm though.
Yeah.
So it's probably better to leave it on and then just put some restrictions in place, like you were mentioned, for 5-star only or something along those lines, 4 to 5.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Seth. Do what's best for your business. Do what you're most comfortable with, right? But we have upwards of 10 to 15 people booking with us every day on all their 60 different properties with Instant Book on, and host requirements or host recommendation required.
Got it.
What that allows is if someone has zero reviews, has 1 bad review, all they can do is request to stay with us. They can't instantly book. But let's say someone has one review, it's 5 stars, they book instantly, right? One review isn't really enough for me to feel comfortable. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to pre-screen them after they instantly booked. And if they're not responding, if they gave me a bad vibe, I have 24 hours to cancel without penalty when that instant book happened. Airbnb has your back on those instant books. So, and it's going to bump you up in the algorithm tremendously. So I still think instant book, without a doubt, is the best way to get your property seen the most. But if you don't want to deal with canceling an instant book, which rarely happens for us, go ahead and keep on doing what you're doing.
Great. Seth is somebody I actually know. He's out of Sacramento, and he's crushing the Airbnb game up there in Sac. Kyle, I don't know if you guys have met or not. I'll definitely make an introduction, but he's part of our Inner Circle community.
Nice.
And he's doing some really cool things up in Sac, so he knows the Airbnb game in that area pretty well. So just for reference, he's a seasoned Airbnb guy as well. He probably had his reasons for turning off instant book, and he sounds like he's liking it. So
cool.
I want to say as well, like, I think, and Don's already said, like, one of mine is in my backyard. The other one in Phoenix, I'm going to be staying here probably 5 months to a year. So I'm going to get to know all the neighbors. The other reason I would do it on this house is for that, because if it's a constant problem and then I have to come and stay and they know who I am and I'm the owner, then now it creates a problem for everybody around me, right?
100%.
So that's my other. But now, if I'm never here, and I'm just going to be swinging in for a weekend and it's not going to be on that level, then let's put the Instabook on. Let's roll.
Well, I have an Airbnb horror story I want to share real quick. So I was part of an event 3-4 years ago. I want to say it was 2018, 19, somewhere in that area, maybe 17, 18. And it was in Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona. It was a large house. It was like a mansion basically. And these guys did this real estate event there and had some speakers, and it wasn't like a crazy thing. They were just, it was more like a tight knit mastermind type of setup. And, we were a quiet group. We didn't party a lot. They brought in food for dinner. We went out at night type of thing from the house. But the neighbors in that area, because it was a high end area, were really, really upset that it was an Airbnb and harassed the group the entire time. At one time we had a bus come to pick everybody up to take them out to dinner. And one of the neighbors actually came up and started a physical fight with one of the attendees.
Whoa.
I mean, so they were that upset about it being an Airbnb. So that is something to really take in consideration, especially getting into the higher end areas, that the neighbors don't want their neighborhood to be a high trafficked neighborhood is essentially their concern.
Which is, again, why I have kind of stayed away. Like the one that I mentioned to you that we're starting over in, I think, again, it's Glendale, the mansion. That's why I'm a little worried, is because, if I have worked my entire life to buy this really stinking nice house and live in a quiet community, and then an Airbnb comes in next to me, I'm probably going to be pissed too. That's typically why I've stayed out of those A++ neighborhoods and focused on the B and the A neighborhoods instead.
And me and Dave were just at one, in December, Dave, at the big house in Scottsdale.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we never throw down, right? But it was a perfect opportunity if you have like the right group of people with pools, 2 houses, massive area, chefs come in, that you can get rowdy and loud. And it's the same thing, like your neighbors are going to get upset. So I do see that for sure.
Absolutely. Hey, Kyle, do you mind dropping that insurance company name again? And I'll actually throw it into the chat so it syndicates out.
Proper.insure. That's the website. Proper.insure.
Insure. Got it.
No .com on there.
Have you had to claim through them yet?
I think that's how you spell it. I'm going to throw that out there.
Where is it? There you go. Nice.
Like that. Does that look good?
No, Don, I actually have not.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people that have.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So Matt says, I'm sure the higher quality neighborhood helps with having great guests. And, maybe, it's going to cost more. So it's going to eliminate the guests that can't afford it. So, maybe that's a great guest, maybe not. It's just
when you get
depends, I would
when
think,
you get into
right?
the higher quality neighborhoods, they're usually bigger homes. And what happens, like what I've seen happen, is you get groups come together and
get the cost down,
pull their money to get the cost down, and it could easily turn into a party situation. That's the concern with having. Who doesn't want to rent a mansion and have a party?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
that becomes the concern, right? And so, you know, the fear factor, I guess, it being a host and upsetting.
That's why we were super.
Go ahead,
Super
Gavin.
what?
We can hear you, bud.
Sorry.
You're good.
I was just gonna say that's why we were good, Dave, back in December, because Don weren't with us.
That's right.
Oh.
And I know Don was talking in the third person a minute ago. So did you win the fight or not?
That wasn't me. That wasn't me. I promise. No. I was a spectator.
Oh, I love it.
I did throw down a bet though. I did. I had to go.
Yeah, but I can see how that would be an issue. And you know, that's something that you're gonna have to work around. And as Kyle just said, he just took one on that he already knows that there's gonna probably be some problems down the road, and his team is okay with that. So it's good to know going in so you can try to mitigate it before it happens. But you know, it still could happen. And here's the thing, it doesn't always have to happen in the big, nice A+ neighborhoods with the 6-bed or 7-bedroom home, right? Yeah. This can also happen in a little 2-bedroom condo, right? You still have neighbors in a lot of these places, unless you're renting a cabin on a lake or on 5 acres, people are going to be seeing you come and go and vice versa. So it's all going to depend.
I think too, one of the ways that you could combat this, and this is a little bit based on experience, but especially like with the mansion I'm mentioning, it's at this point just a theory. You know, our goal is to gross basically about 10 grand per month minimum during the slow season with the mansion. Like during the high season, like when spring training's going on, that thing should be making close to probably $50,000. So the goal in doing that and knowing your numbers too, like we can get there one of two ways. If we want to get it booked for $500 a night for 20 nights, you know, we're going to probably have a lot lower end guests because it's $500. And like you were mentioning, I think Don was mentioning it, you pull together 15 people, what's $500 a night? You know, but if we have $2,000 per night, then it only takes us getting to that $10,000 number that month. It only takes 5 nights booked. So $2,000 per night for a weekend is a little bit tougher to, you know, if we've got still 15 people, it's still a low cost, but you know, maybe even like $3,000 a night. I'm not sure, but I just know that with us knowing our numbers, knowing our goals, if we want to keep some higher quality guests there, raising the rate is an easy way to attempt to do that. But check back in with me. I'll let you know how that's going.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'd totally do it as well, like mansion. I mean, I would do it. I wouldn't. Yeah. I don't think anyone should be scared to do it.
Yeah,
I'd totally do it. Yeah.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think, you know, I know this question hasn't been asked, but we haven't talked a whole lot about the earning potential in this business, and I think that's really important to know. Do you guys have any questions about that?
Yeah, I mean,
of course.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
this important bit.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a minimum? All right. Do you have a minimum that you have to make, like on a?
Well,
rental?
he did say that he wanted to make a one quarter net, right? So if it brings in $4,000 a month, he's hoping for 1,000, and that's, I would imagine, averaged over the course of a year, because you're going to have, you know, some neighborhoods and markets may be really steady, whereas others may be like super spikes and then super, you know, troughs. So
yeah. 1/3 is the number I'm aiming for.
I'm sorry, 1/3.
No, yeah, that's all good. I would say if we're looking at an ROI of owning a home, if I've got a management company that's going to do it for me, I want to make at least an 18 to 20% cash on cash return for that year one. And if I own it myself and I'm managing it myself, I want to be right around probably 28 to 30%, adding on another 10% into those numbers. So long story short, if I spend $100,000, I want to net year one 30 grand if I'm managing it myself. But for arbitrage and co-hosting, what's great about it is, let's say that those same numbers, what if I net $30,000, but my costs up front are only $15,000? Well, I just ROI'd 200% in year one, which is really phenomenal. And then if you're co-hosting like me, the majority of them, it's an infinite return on your investment because you have no money invested in the property. So the only difference there is that, you know, with each one, you're going to go down a little bit in profit. So lower risk, lower reward, but man, I'm still grossing or netting $1,000 on a property that I don't own and have no money invested in with co-hosting. So I'll take that every day that ends in Y,
Now, when you say co-hosting, or does that mean that that's not the same as you just managing for somebody else? Or is it?
It is. Yep.
Okay. So that's a totally different thing though than you being on you arbitraging, unless it's them that's arbitraging.
Okay, let's ask this question because Kyle and I've had conversations. I had this crazy goal. I want to do a bunch of Airbnbs in 1 year. I have struggled to get traction doing it, partly because I don't understand it, and I've always had this fear in my head of what happens if all these things happen, right? But anyway, the longest story is I'm going to do it. I'm going to hit that goal. What should somebody expect? Like, I'm coming in, I never managed an Airbnb. I obviously probably need somebody to manage at least the first few, if not all of them forever. Like, what should somebody expect a manager to do for them? What should we be asking for? What expenses should we expect? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are tons of management companies out there that offer tons of different services. So what I'll just share with you is what I do with my owners. So we are local. We promote ourselves as a mom and pop type of business so that they know they're still going to have a relationship with the people that are managing their property. I typically am onboarding our owners, sharing with them what the process is going to be like. And then my team takes over from there, and they have a very close relationship with my team. So my team is going to make it 100% passive for the owner. They don't have to lift a finger. The only finger that they'll lift that month is their thumb to say, yes, the profit and loss statement looks good. Go ahead and direct deposit the money over. Outside of that, we're doing all of the turnovers. We recruit all of the team members, from cleaners to handymen to electrical, plumbing, HVAC, contractors if we need to. We're managing all of the quality control. We're making sure that property is in pristine condition, and we're making sure that we're keeping our ratings ideally above a 4.85 or higher. On top of that, everything that we're going to set up for you, we're going to invoice back to you. So we make that passive for the owner as well, the setup, furnishing, consumables, all that stuff. On a monthly basis, we're going to pay for all the restocking fees, and that's going to be covered in the management fee that I charge to you. So toilet paper, paper towels, cleaning supplies, I'm paying for that. You don't have to pay for that. So yeah, long story short, here's what you're going to make. Here's what I'm going to make. I'm very transparent about what I make. Here's the onboarding fee, and we're going to make it passive for you. Just sign here, send over your onboarding fee. We're ready to rock and roll. That's what we do. So we make it fully 100% passive. We're an all-in-one shop, or one-stop shop. But there's other ones out there that, hey, you got to find the cleaners, or hey, you got to, help me with messaging guests, or hey, you got to pay for this and that. And, they'll charge you a lower percentage most of the time. But you're going to end up getting your hands dirty in the process as well.
What's a typical onboarding fee? I'm assuming there's if you're going to pick furniture and do the design, there's probably a fee associated with that, and then there's a fee to onboard you as just a manager. What should somebody expect in those about?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have us furnish it, we need to be able to pay for the furniture, pay for the team to put the furniture together, and still have a little bit left over for profit. So like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I'm typically going to charge you $12,000 for material plus labor on furnishing. And then our onboarding fee is everything outside of the furniture. It started out, I used to do $1,000. Now we're up to $2,000.
And that's the setup, the ads and everything else, and get everything squared away. Yeah.
Yeah, knowing which consumables to buy, putting it in the right places, making the direct booking site, all of the marketing as well.
Okay.
What's the direct booking site?
Direct booking site is booking not on Airbnb. It's booking straight with us. We have a website that people can go to. They can book directly with us, whether they've stayed with us or not. And the great advantage of that is that all those 15% of Airbnb fees are no longer there. We charge the guests about 5% of fees, which means we make more money and the guest saves about 10%.
Nice. So you can't advertise that on Airbnb though, right? You're basically just using that for guests that have basically booked and then left, and then you're saying, hey, you want to come back, or something along those lines, maybe?
Yeah. And here's the great thing is when a guest is staying in your house, you now control that customer. So I can expose them to a lot of different things, a lot of different lead magnets as well that will allow me to collect their information. Airbnb used to give the emails of the guests. Now they no longer do. So we can give them the option of sharing their email address. We collect that guest and we put them into our list. I think our list is like over 1,000 guests now that we can direct email market and say, hey, Valentine's Day is coming up. We only have 2 places available. Get a direct booking right now. Skip the Airbnb fees, book right here. And we can get that place booked, make a little bit extra money. Or we can, go and say, hey, in 5 months, we got, the Clovis Rodeo, or we've got, the summer coming up at Bass Lake, or we got spring training over at, in Phoenix. And we can do some promos to try to get people to book those right away and get our places filled up without having to do it through Airbnb. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what we are and what we want to be as a short-term rental business, not an Airbnb business. Because if we rely on Airbnb, that could go away tomorrow. Who knows?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Seth's got a good question here. What is your direct booking percentage?
My direct booking percentage. I'm guessing he means
percentage of all bookings. What percent come in?
Got it. It's not high. It's a workup process. I would say right now we're probably at about 5% of our bookings are direct bookings.
But if you don't have a website and even offer it, it's 0. And as you grow more and more people that want to come back, it's going to grow over time.
Exactly.
So I love it, man. And even if it's not even necessarily more profitable for you, but it saves the consumer, the guest a little bit, then that's just going to be a great way to build trust with them to where you can hopefully get them to come back to your destination versus the neighboring one down the street.
Yeah. And that's the thing is you want customers for life, right? It's a lot easier to resell to current customers than it is to sell to new customers. So if I can give someone a 5-star experience and they want to come back again and again and again, and then let's say that 5th time is a 4-star experience, well, they've already had enough good experiences with me where they're probably going to let that one go. So
yeah, that's a really, really good point. I like that.
Yep. Yeah. I know Matt had asked earlier, well, where can we learn more about Airbnb? So I've got an absolutely free YouTube channel, The Fearless Investor. You can look that up. We also have the largest Airbnb Facebook group in the world for hosts, Airbnb Masterminds. And, obviously I've got some coaching options too. If you just go check out fearlesskyle.com, that's my website. You can get connected with me in a number of different ways to learn about that. But I would say any of those 3 resources are going to help with learning more, Matt.
Awesome, man. I
love it.
We got 1 or 2 quick questions here before we wrap up, Kyle, but we do want to respect your time here today, buddy. How much can I charge as an Airbnb manager? Faye says, I have so much experience with my own. And then typically, how much do you guys pay per property?
How much do we pay per property?
Well, on that second part, but let's talk about the first part.
Yeah, the first part. I would say when you're starting out, because it'll be your first time doing it for someone else, lowest you should go is 18%, and that's of the gross revenue collected. You should be camping out right around 20% in the beginning. If you're doing it the same way I am, like I mentioned in that pitch that I just gave, full service and making it completely passive for the owner. And then as you build up,
you're talking 20% of gross, right?
Gross. Yeah. Gross. And then as you build up your experience, build up your portfolio, build up those references, you can easily move up to 25%.
Interesting. Okay. Awesome, man. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you, learn from you. You've dropped a bunch of gold nuggets on us today. So we are just super, super happy to have you. We're grateful for your time. Guys, don't forget, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube. And with that, we're going to sign off. Gavin, Don, you got anything you want to add?
No, appreciate it. Kyle, thanks for joining us. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I'm excited. See you in Tulum as well. And guys, have a good